body fat in our participants. Okay, so weight loss study, we were able to get weight loss for these participants. And then if we look at glucose, there really wasn't a change, but you can see that things are moving in the right direction. Okay, so you have a sort of a small change here and a 3 times the change here for the people who are in the intervention group. Okay, so here again, what do we leave with the church? Okay, so what we left the church was individuals who were trained to deliver a weight loss program, who can continue to deliver this weight loss program once we're gone, okay, because they have the training. Okay, we also left them with the materials, so they don't have to come to us asking for materials; they have it right there. Okay, so they are fully able and fully capable of continuing to run the weight loss intervention in their church. So again, we're not just kind of coming in and just leaving, we're leaving the community with something. Okay, so switch a little bit, and why do we want to do community-based interventions? Okay, why do I do community-based interventions? Why do you guys think? Any ideas?
Reach more people.
Exactly right. We can reach people. So the community is where the people that I want to work with are. Okay, the community has a lot of assets. It's where people eat. It's where they shop. It's where they shop. Your neighbors are there. Okay, so you have networks within your community. Some of your neighbors are probably not the ones that you want, a little bit nosy, but nonetheless, we have neighbors. And then, so this is obviously a view of a neighborhood. And so let's look at some of the things we have here. We have homes. Okay, so we have people, you got neighbors. You have cars. You have some green space. You have sidewalks. You have kids, and you have streets. Okay, so your neighborhood has some assets. You might not think about them that way, but we do have assets. So recognizing that the community has neighborhoods, have assets. A colleague of mine came to me and said, you know, we should do a Play Streets project. And I said, okay, but I don't really know what a Play Streets is. And so Dr. Royals is her name, and she said, basically, it's where we are going to close off the streets to traffic, close off streets within the neighborhood to traffic, and we're going to have times where kids can just come out and play. And the neighborhood will, you know, have different ideas of things that they can bring out so that the children can play safely in the streets. Because one of the major factors that we know from doing research from neighborhoods is that they feel like it's not safe for children to do physical activity in the neighborhood. They would like for their children to, but they really don't. The other thing is that they don't really know their neighbors that well. Okay, so we decided to do a Play Streets project. And so what this Play Streets project really was, we went to 2 neighborhoods in North Baton Rouge that were high crime neighborhoods, Brookstown and Glen Oaks, if you know them. And we went to them and basically said, hey, we would like to do a project where we essentially close off streets, all the children and parents can come out and play together on consecutive Saturdays, and what do you think about that? And they were all for it. And so our idea was to do this in April. Why do you think we want to do it on April? Any ideas? After that. Exactly. Guess when they wanted to do it? Yes. July, August. Exactly, yes. So we agreed. So we conducted these Play Streets on 6 Saturdays in July and August of 2015. From 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So you can imagine how hot we were after about 15 minutes. But anyway, it was a great experience. We had the neighborhood, we encouraged them to come up with ideas for what they wanted their children to do, what kind of activities that they wanted. We as researchers did not dictate what went on because this was a community, this was a neighborhood initiative, okay? We helped organize it. And in order to organize it, several things had to happen. So first of all, you have to get the police involved because the police have to block off the streets. You have to get an insurance retainer so that if anything goes wrong, nobody can sue the city. You have to get everybody on the street, everybody's house has to sign a petition, or they have to basically sign an agreement that it's okay, I agree to have these Play Streets in our neighborhood, okay? So we worked with the neighborhood, we had volunteers from the neighborhood who kind of went and did some of these things for us. And these are the kind of activities that went on. So there's a sprinkler, Rec on the Go, if you know anything about that, basically it's like a mobile physical activity unit. They have a truck and they kind of park it, and then they bring out all these different activities for kids to play in. They wanted music, they wanted food, we had police participating and actually engaging in activity with the kids. One of the neighborhoods actually sponsored a 5K, and they blocked it off and measured it, did everything that was necessary for that. There was some face painting. And these are pictures of actual things that happened during the play streets, okay? So you can see that Breck on the Go, they brought out basketballs, they brought out this balance beam, there's frisbees, here's the police who's playing basketball, we have hula hoops. This is basically a big dance-off. It's me taking this picture, by the way, I was not dance-off. This, you're not really supposed to lay on it, you're supposed to sit on it and do races in it. But this is me. It's part of the obstacle course. And so what happened was you had to do some push-ups, and you had to like do some hurdles, you had to run on some barriers, and then you had to like sprint back to the end. Now here it looks like I'm in second place, doesn't it? By the time we got to the finish line, I had won. Now, he lost his shoe, but I still won. All right, so what happened with our Play Streets project? So let me sort of orient you to these graphs. This is essentially 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., this is 10 to 2, this is 2 to 6, and then 6 to 10, okay? During a weekday. So essentially what happened was we gave kids Fitbits. We let them wear the Fitbits for a week before the Play Streets project and then a week during the Play Streets project. And so we have an assessment of what happened before and after. So this is a Saturday with no Play Street. It looks very much, a little bit higher activity, but very much like activity during the weekday, okay? The only thing that really changes, well, each of them change a little bit, but not that much. Here's the activity during the Play Streets. And what you see is that 10 to 2, you get 2,000 more steps than what you get on a Saturday without a Play Streets, okay? So our Play Streets was able to increase physical activity in children on Saturdays compared to Saturdays when there was not a Play Streets. And we did this in 3 consecutive Saturdays, okay? So this is not just one Saturday, it's 3 consecutive Saturdays. So we felt like this was a project that has potential because neighborhoods they can do everything they need to do. They can get the petitions, they can, work with the police, they obviously can, get activities together for their children to do. So this is a project that has potential to, hopefully, to be institutionalized here in Baton Rouge. And it's been institutionalized in New York City and in Seattle and in Bogota, Colombia. They actually close off 75 square miles every Sunday. And they basically have what's a bit larger than Play Streets because they have food there as well, and there's different activities, and people come out on bikes and they walk, and they just do a whole bunch of different stuff during these ciclovias, as they're called. So, what did we leave the neighborhood? We left them a blueprint of how to do Play Streets, okay? And so, hopefully, some of these neighborhoods will, take up on this and continue to do some of these Play Streets. We also let them with relationships. So, obviously we had police come out, the DA also came out, so there were different pastors and different organizations that came out to sponsor, Coca-Cola and LSU and Bragg, YMCA, so there's different organizations that came out to help support this project. And so hopefully the neighborhood leaders, made some relationships, and we're also hoping that because we had many different neighbors come out, that there was, over time, the relationships among your neighbors will increase, because that was one of the things that they said was a preventive barrier to getting your kids out to do physical activities. They didn't really know the neighbors very much. We actually had a neighbor who, she came out the very first day of the Play Street. She probably came out about 10:30, 11. She was not happy. She was very upset. Why can't I drive out of here? Why are there all these kids in the street? She was just very, very frustrated. So in the second week, we noticed that she kind of came out with a child. And then the third week, she was out there enjoying it just like everybody. So hopefully that kind of effect will, continue to occur. All right, so another community resource would be community centers. Okay, this is maybe an obvious one. A lot of things happen in community centers. Okay, so there's exercise classes, there's activities, there's bingo, there's cards, there's crochet, there's health screenings that go on. You can pay your bills at community centers. They hold meetings. So there's a lot of community activity that already goes on in community centers. And so we tapped into this to get information from community members about a project that we were thinking about doing. So as I said before, one of the things that we're learning about is that dementia is obviously growing in its prevalence, and it's becoming a chronic condition, and the African Americans actually have 2 times the risk of developing dementia as do compared to members of other ethnic groups. Okay, so we wanted to get from older African Americans their ideas about, do you feel at risk for dementia? Is this something that you're concerned about? If you are, what kinds of things would you be willing to do? Okay, and so we had 46 African Americans contribute to or participate in the focus groups, and they were cognizant of dementia. They realized that it was something that was in their relevance, if you will. So they either had a family member who was experiencing some dementia, they themselves were experiencing some memory problems, but this was very stigmatized. They did not want to talk about this. Okay, this is something that they wanted to keep very close to the vest. They noted that they felt like some genetic factors and lifestyle factors were contributing, and that they would be willing to do a number of different programs. If it was a dietary program, if it was a physical activity program, if it was a cognitive training program, essentially where we do activities to keep your brain active, okay? But we also wanted to know, like, okay, we're researchers, so we want to know, like, what can we do to you in a sense? Like, what measurements are we going to be able to do? So, cognitive testing, basically where you sit down and you answer a bunch of questions and you try to figure out what's going on with your memory and how your thinking is going and how quickly are you processing information. Do you guys think that they were willing to do this? Okay, everybody who thinks that they were willing to do this, raise your hand. Okay, yes, they were. They said, hey, we'll do this. It's no pain, we're good with this. Okay. All right, so what about a blood draw? Where we're going to essentially stick you with a needle to look at your blood glucose and your cholesterol, see how it changes, and maybe look at some genetic factors because there's some differences in genetic risk for African Americans in terms of dementia. What do you think? Were they willing to do this or not? Raise your hand if you think they were. All right, good. Yes, they were willing to do this. Okay, what about an MRI? Where we put you on a table and we slide you into this little tube and it's ding, 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 that goes on. We're going to measure how your brain is functioning during certain activities. What do you think? Yes or no? Raise your hand if you think so. Some people are really skeptical. Yes, we're going to do this. Somebody just didn't raise their hand at all. All right, so the final thing we asked about was a lumbar puncture. And if you don't know anything about this, it's basically a spinal tap. And they stick a little needle. It's not a needle. It's not very small. But anyway, they stick a needle in your back and they drain your cerebral spinal fluid because we want to know what's going on in the brain. And the way that we do that partly is through a lumbar puncture. Has anybody ever had a lumbar puncture? I've had one too. I got to say, I was having a migraine at the time, and the lumbar puncture I didn't feel. Like I was in so much pain in my head that I didn't feel the lumbar puncture. Now, if I had not had that migraine, this would have been a terrible event. But anyway, so do you think they were willing to do the lumbar puncture by show of hands? They said absolutely not. No way we're going to do a lumbar puncture. Let's do all the other stuff, but not that. So, but essentially what we're doing with this is we're learning, right? So that we can plan our next intervention in the community. So we will follow this up with more focus groups to say, hey, okay, now we have a program. We have a physical activity program that we want to do. We need your input. What kinds of physical activity are you willing to do? Do you need a facility? Do you want to do it just at home? Some of these kinds of questions to get at how can we refine our program to make it more appropriate for this population. And another question we have is, would they wear wearable devices? Because if they're willing to wear devices on their wrists that let us know how much physical activity they do, that means we get more data, we know more about them and what kinds of things they're doing outside of our exercise program. Okay, so we we had 26 people who participated in the focus groups, and they essentially said, we'll do any kind of exercise that you want. So long as you recognize that we have some limitations like arthritis and you may have heart disease, these sorts of things. As long as you tailor your program to our specific physical activity, limitations will be okay. They were willing to do weightlifting, water aerobics, Zumba, dancing, Tai Chi, didn't matter. They wanted to be at a facility. They wanted to have a place to go to do the physical activity as opposed to doing it on their own. They were willing to receive information any which way, phone, text, emails, didn't really matter. They wanted information on brain health. They wanted information on healthy meals, estate planning, these kinds of things. So issues relevant to an aging population. And then in terms of wearables, they said overwhelmingly, yes, we will wear wearables. And actually half of the people had Fitbits or iWatches or something that they were wearing already. Okay, so this was good for us. The one thing that they did not want is randomization. So, as a scientist, what we do is we flip a coin and we say, oh, you either get the intervention group or you get the control group. They did not like this idea. It's something definitely for us to consider when writing future grants, but we had already essentially gotten the money for this one, so the randomization was kind of out of the question. So, nonetheless, what this resulted in is a study called PACE. Okay? So, PACE is designed to see if one of two different interventions will decrease African American older adults' risk factors for developing dementia. Okay, so one group is an exercise group where we're essentially going to exercise with you, and there's some exercise that you can do on your own. The other group is a successful aging group where you're going to learn about estate planning. You're going to learn about how to avoid scams and things like this. It's more social and interactive. Okay, and this is our flyer. Kind of tells you about who we're looking for: sedentary African Americans between the ages of 65 and 85. Who are capable of engaging in regular physical activity, but who are not engaged in regular physical activity right now. And this may be a little bit small for you guys to see, but this is where you can get information about the study. It's going on right now. We're recruiting. We're looking for about 30 to 40 more people to be involved in the study. Just in case you didn't see the number, 763-3000. You can also go to the website, www.pbrcpace, P-A-A-C. Now, in case I didn't emphasize this enough, I'm going to see if we can pop up a video here.
Hi, I'm Leah from Pennington Biomedical.
Did you guys see
I
that?
will let you know about the PACE studies. PACE will determine if two different programs tailored to older African Americans can help improve brain
Really? You
function.
can't see it?
If eligible, you will be
Yes.
placed in either a physical activity or a successful aging group, where you will attend group sessions either here
They have a
in
presentation.
or at your local YMCA. You can earn up to
That makes
$100 for participating.
Yeah, it's basically looking at a dual screen.
So you say get out of the presentation?
Yeah, you have to close it.
And then you're gonna have to slide the other one, what you see on your screen over. I think the projector is doing like a dual monitor.
Feel free to come on down. You're
To learn more, give us a call at
Okay, well, obviously my audiovisual skills are not that great. But anyway, we'll just move on if I can. And Jerry's not helping. It's all right. All right. So anyway, for more emphasis. Okay, so anyway, a couple of take-home points. Remember, 150 minutes of physical activity of aerobic, moderate to aerobic activity. 2 days of strength training. Okay. Community-based programs can be used to improve health. So we've shown this in YMCA's, we've shown it in churches, and we're going to continue to work with both of those entities to promote different programs. PACE is actually going on at the YMCA, so that's another sign of our continued collaboration. And so, of course, we want you to become involved in PACE, or if you know somebody who would be interested in who would fit the category of the participant we're looking for, we want you to let them know about the study. Okay. Any questions?
On the shred, 2 days of shred.
That's very vague in the federal guidelines. So, and I don't specifically tell you, like, do 2 or 3 sets of, leg exercises and 2 or 3 sets of chest. But I would think that, if you're doing exercises, strength exercises that are working the major muscles of the body, so your legs, upper and lower, your chest, your back, upper and lower, your shoulders, biceps and triceps, if you're doing exercises on a regular basis that are working those muscles, you're doing the kind of activity that they want you to be doing, and that's going to be health promoting.
What does the acronym stand for? PAAC?
Oh, the Program for African American Cognition and Exercise.
Oh,
How do you get those? So when you close off the streets and you have the how do you get those people, you know, you talk about working with police and the communities, really get engaged and that continue to happen?
You know, that's a challenge that we're sort of facing, and I think what it takes is, there's two things. You have to have basically a champion in your community who's going to drive this. If you don't have somebody who's really invested, it's going to be very difficult because there's a lot of hoops that you have to go through. I also think that you have to be in a city that understands that this is something that is important and that they're willing to do. So, you know, New York City saw it, Seattle saw it, there's other cities in the United States. We're actually trying to find cities here in Louisiana that want to do this institutionalized program. But you're fighting a lot to actually do the place use program. So certainly Dr. Burrows can talk more about this, but you have to realize that, you know, for a city planner, a street is not for play. A street is to get a car from point A to point B. And so trying to convince them that, hey, we can use this to improve the health of the community is very difficult. It can be difficult to get the people in the neighborhood to actually sign the petition. That took some time for us as well. There's just different red tape that you have to go through. But if you have a champion, I think, and a city that's willing, I think that it's something that can be instituted.